Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. As always, this is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank each of you for choosing to fly the friendly airwaves with us here on our state-of-the-art radio program at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and delve into the topic which I have selected for today's episode. If there is one point of consternation that has always existed for conservative politicians that have been elected or newly elected to a position after a long entrenched progressive leftist has been wreaking havoc on an area, it's that the newly elected conservative tends to blunder by placing or misplacing trust by putting forth an olive branch to the opposite end of the political aisle by maintaining the staff of whatever group it is that they're replacing or whatever politician it is they're replacing. Now, in the state of Virginia, this is a particularly big and important thing because Virginia has been basically struck with a left-wing, progressive, almost communistical system for many years under Terry McAuliffe. And, of course, last year, when he was replaced by Youngkin, the main issue that rose to the epicenter was critical race theory and in schools. After all, McAuliffe had famously said that he didn't think that the parents should have a say over what their kids were taught. Now, indeed, that goes in line with the usual Democratic line that has existed for decades. Think back to Hillary Rodham Clinton's "It takes a village to raise a child." But in this modern era, where identity politics has taken center stage, where they are basically attempting to resurrect segregation and the darkest elements of Jim Crow, but in whiteface, that's what they've been doing lately, and you really can't afford to take that lightly. You can't afford to ignore the drastic impact and ramifications which arise from this. And I think one of the greatest examples we have of the residual effect of leaving in long-standing bureaucratic nightmares holding their office would be in the case of Dr. Anthony the Phony Fauci. In fact, President Trump himself admits that his greatest mistake was ever allowing that little lawn gnome to assume such a prominent position in the pandemic response because of his constant pandering, his constant vainglory in front of the cameras, and assuming all sides on any issue while attempting also to silence anyone who disagreed with him, particularly whenever light came close to his own corrupt dealings, of which there are many. After all, he has been in the position he holds now for well over 4 decades. So that creates a sort of nepotism and the sort of corruption that runs rampant and can basically rot the echelons of government to its core. So, leaving those people in power, or refusing to sack people because you want to create a feel-good impression, is just stupid, for want of a better term. It's going to come back to bite you each and every time. Fortunately, in the state of Virginia, we have promising signs that Youngkin and the people that serve under him are taking a holistically different approach, and thank God for it. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, because it's quite interesting. This comes from the Daily Caller, and it's an article by Brian Babb. New Virginia AG fires 30 staff members prior to taking office. It's interesting. It starts off with Virginia Attorney General Jason Myries fired 30 staff members, 17 of whom were attorneys, Friday, according to the Richmond Times-Dispatch. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. But anyway, he has just fired the entire Civil Rights Division in the Attorney General office and announced that he will prosecute criminal cases in jurisdictions where Soros DAs decline to prosecute. That is a major development. And the reason that I say that this is a major development is because what have we seen? Whether it be in the Rittenhouse case, whether it be in Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, where these district attorneys are refusing to prosecute cases, we're getting a double standard in law. And that type of double standard actually undermines the integrity of the judiciary, and it undermines the trust that the American citizen has within the justice system. And it goes without saying that our justice system is in dire need of reform, and that we need to get back to the letter of the law, and that we need to get back to equal application of the law. And unfortunately, the equal protection and application of the law has degraded to such an extent that it has pushed this nation to the brink of anarchy. So what Jason Myres there in Virginia has promised is absolutely the sort of thing that is needed. It is something that I would like to see occur on a grander scale in more places in the United States. But let's continue. He is also the first person of color attorney general in Virginia history. Now, normally I wouldn't make much hay of that, but again, in this sort of charged political environment, you need optics victories like that, because in politics, oftentimes, perception matters more than reality, and this allows us to take away one of the fundamental punching points and one of the fundamental talking points and arguments that the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists have been using against us time and again. And it also allows us to take the steam out of their sail and take the winds out of their sail, because if they try and push too hard saying he's an Uncle Tom or something down the lines of that, some equally atrocious thing, we can hit back on them and point to the blatant and gross hypocrisy that exists, as well as to just how deplorable their failed public policy positions truly are. Myres was sworn in to the position of Virginia Attorney General on January 15th alongside Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, according to the Richmond Times-Dispatch. During the campaign, it was made clear that now Attorney General-elect Myres and Attorney General Herring have very different visions for the office. Myres' spokesperson Victoria Lacavita said, according to the Richmond Times-Dispatch, "We are restructuring the office as every incoming Attorney General has done in the past." Now, what that is a simple statement of intent. It is showing to the constituency of the state of Virginia that we are not going to allow the failed policies of the prior administration to remain in place, and that we are going to take the necessary and proper steps in order to ensure that law and order is restored to the state of Virginia, and that the Dominion state will return to adherence to the constitutional principles that are enshrined in both the United States Constitution as well as the Virginia State Constitution. And of course, under Terry McAuliffe, that was something that Virginia didn't have. They were blatantly thumbing their nose at the people of Virginia. Their time-honored values, institutions, and traditions were being defaced. They were allowing violence to continue, and they were engaging in the sort of gross identity politics that is designed by the Frankfurt School during the interwar year periods to destroy a nation in order to implant the seed of Marxism. That is cultural Marxism, and that is what the modern left in America has embraced, and has embraced wholeheartedly. wholeheartedly. It also says that Attorney General Mayres is looking forward to fully analyzing and evaluating the entire office of the Attorney General in the days and weeks after the inauguration. After he's had time to do this, we will announce any other office changes. So that, too, is showing that they are committed to implementing these needed reforms, and that they are going to stay firm and steadfast in them. Again, this is promising. This is the sort of change that is absolutely necessary for the Dominion state in response to all of the chicanery that was enacted by Terry McAuliffe in the years that he held that office. And the attorney generals that they had, or attorneys generals rather, that they had were basically doubling down on the George Floyd Black Lives Matter nonsense that was used to instill anarchy from coast to coast and border to border in the United States. So it's good that we're getting past that. It goes on to say, these are dedicated and professional public servants who do important work, like investigate wrongful convictions, protect Virginians' civil rights, help to ensure free and fair elections, that's a big one, and prevent human trafficking and opioid abuse, said former Attorney General Herring spokesperson Charlotte Gomer regarding the fired staff. Again, this is posturing by the left. They know that they have been soundly defeated and that there's really no way for them to come back from this. And let's face it, when Obama assumed office, he went through and he sacked all of the former administration's personnel that he thought would be problematic. It's normal. And in fact, this should be the practice that is accepted and that is engaged in by those that are assuming the office, particularly after such a diametric shift in policy views and beliefs. This was a major rebuke of the type of politics that Terry McAuliffe and the Democrats had embraced. It was a rejection of the type of identity politics that is designed by its very nature to tear this nation asunder from within. So I have to disagree with Gomer there, but Mayres announced on Twitter that his intention for his office to investigate scandals involving the Virginia Parole Board and the Loudoun County Schools, and that some of these investigations have already been opened. That is the salvo that is needed to show the progressive left, the wannabe communists, and the outright communists in most instances, that we are not going to tolerate the attempts they have made to undermine law and order, to undermine our institutions, our values, and our traditions. This is a good first step, and this is exactly why elections matter. I tip my hat to the people of Virginia, and I wish them the best on this continuing journey of reformation in their state after it has been so recklessly mishandled for far too long. This is a very promising start to the new administration of Governor Youngkin and Attorney General Mayres. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for flying with us today. I hope to see you again next time. Please do take care.